Good morning, everyone, to today's webinar. Yesterday webinar was pretty fruitful and we could answer a lot of questions. Today's webinar is organized by Chandigarh Judicial Academy in collaboration with SCC Online. The topic for today's webinar is challenges in appreciation of electronic evidence and recording of evidence through video conferencing. And to take this session, we have Mrs. Ranjana Agarwal, ma'am, who's a ADJ cum faculty member in Chandigarh Judicial Academy. This webinar would be like any other webinar that we've been doing. So first, Ranjana ma'am would be detailing the entire webinar about the topic that is in question over here. And post which the forum would be open for question and answer round. I'm sure everyone knows where we can put the questions. Without any further ado, I would request Ranjana ma'am to please take the platform and start the session. Ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today's session is about challenges and appreciation of electronic evidence and recording evidence through video conferencing. Everybody knows how computers have changed our lives beyond imagination and continue to do so. Computers have changed the way we spend our mornings. Computers have changed the way we eat. It has changed the way we communicate. It has changed the way we arrange our functions. Everything has changed, and courts are no exception. Besides the day-to-day working in the courts, which is through computers, and the working has been revolutionized, a lot of evidence which is coming in the courts is in electronic form. So in such a scenario, it's we cannot afford not to know about electronic evidence. So hence the session on electronic evidence. But at the outset, let me just put a disclaimer that I do not claim to be a technology expert. Whatever experience I have, I would just be sharing that with you. So let's start with the session. The topic is challenges in appreciation of electronic evidence and recording evidence through video conferencing. The Information Technology Act came in the year 2000, and a lot of amendments were carried out in Evidence Act, IPC, Bankers Book Evidence Act, Bankers Book Evidence Act. I'll quickly run you through the amendments to Indian Evidence Act. It is very important to know what amendments have taken place in the Evidence Act so that one is in a better position to appreciate as to what are the documents for which one is required to take proof, and what are the documents where presumption of correctness is attached. So the evidence now includes electronic evidence. The definition of documentary evidence has changed. Now it has been amended to include all documents, including electronic records produced for inspection by the court. And the electronic record has been given the same meaning as assigned to it under the IT Act. The definition of admission has changed under Section 17. Now it includes a statement in oral, documentary, or electronic form. A new section 22A has been inserted into the Act. Now it provides for relevancy of the oral evidence regarding the contents of the electronic record. It says that oral admissions regarding the contents of the electronic record are not relevant unless the genuineness of the electronic record produced is in question. Now there are certain presumptions which are very important, because if any of these documents comes to the court, one knows that presumption of correctness is attached to these documents, and that will really be helpful in the working of the court. Under Section 81A of Evidence Act, the court presumes the genuineness of electronic record, which is an official gazette, or any legally governed electronic record, provided it has come, it was kept in the form required by law and it is produced from proper custody. Then electronic agreements. Section 85 says that contract has concluded where the parties' digital signatures are affixed to an electronic record that purports to be an agreement. And next is 85B. It talks about secure electronic record. Now, what is a secure electronic record? It's a record where a security procedure has been applied. Where a security procedure has been applied to an electronic record at a specific time, the record is deemed to be a secure electronic record from such time until the time of verification. And the court to presume that since electronic record is, since the application of security procedure, the record has not been altered. Then there is a presumption regarding digital signature certificate. This is section 85C. It says that there is a presumption that information listed in the certificate is correct. Section 88A, it's about electronic messages. This is very important because every day we know that in the court, when in the working of the court, we get WhatsApp messages, emails, and text messages. So section 88A is, from that point of view, is very important. It says the presumption that an electronic message forwarded by a sender through an electronic mail server to an addressee corresponds with the message fed into the sender's computer for transmission. So this presumes the correctness of the message that has been received and has been sent by the sender. Then another presumption is regarding 5-year-old electronic records. This is section 90A. It says where electronic record has been produced from proper custody and it purports to be 5-year-old, there is a presumption the digital signature affixed to the document was fixed by the signatory or a person authorized on behalf of the signatory. Then 67A, it's about electronic signature. It says, if the electronic signature of any subscriber is alleged to have been affixed to an electronic record, the fact that such electronic signature is the digital signature of the subscriber, this has to be proved. So this is about electronic signature. Next is 73A, which is regarding proof as to the verification of digital signature. In order to ascertain whether a digital signature is that of the person by whom it purports to have been affixed, the court will direct that the person or the controller or the certifying authority to produce a digital signature certificate and any other person to apply the public key listed in the digital signature certificate and verify the digital signature which has been affixed by that person. So these are the relevant section. When any electronic evidence comes to the court, when any evidence comes to the court and you have to decide whether the procedure as prescribed under section 65B of the Evidence Act has to be applied or not, the first thing is that you have to determine whether it is electronic record or not. Now, what is an electronic record? For instance, I'll give an example that like the computer, the mobile is a computer. So any data which is generated in the mobile, which is received in the mobile, which is sent using the mobile is an electronic record. So when this record has probative value, that is when it can be used in court during trial, this is electronic evidence. So if one comes to the conclusion that it is the evidence in front of the court is electronic evidence, the next step is to apply the proper procedure, the proper provision. Now, the important sections as far as electronic evidence is concerned are 65A and 65B. Now, 65A merely refers to 65B. It says the contents of the electronic record may be proved in accordance with the provisions of 65B. So this is 65B, which talks about the admissibility of electronic record. Before proceeding further, I would like to go through this provision because it's very, very important. It's important to understand what does it talk about. So it says, it starts, notwithstanding anything contained in this act, any information contained in an electronic record which is printed on a paper, stored, recorded, or copied in optical or magnetic media produced by a computer shall be deemed to be a document if the conditions mentioned in subsection 2 are satisfied. Now, subsection 2 mentions about certain conditions which have to be satisfied. Now, what are those conditions? Subsection 2A, the computer output containing the information was produced by the computer during the period over which the computer was used regularly to store or process information for the purposes of any activities regularly carried on over that period by the person having lawful control over the use of computer. And during the said period, information of the kind contained in the electronic record or of the kind from which the information so contained is derived was regularly fed into the computer in the ordinary course of said activities, and throughout the material part, the computer was operating properly, or if not, then in respect of any period in which it was not operating properly or was out of operation during that part of the period was not such as to affect the electronic record or the accuracy of its contents. The information contained in the electronic record reproduces or is derived from such information which is already fed into the computer in ordinary course of said activities. Subsection 3, it says whenever, where over any period, the function of storing or processing information for the purposes of any activities regularly carried on over that period in clause A of subsection 2 was regularly performed by the computer, whether by a combination of computers operating over that period, by different computers operating in succession over that period, by different combinations of computers operating in succession over that period, or in any other manner involving the successive operation over that period in whatever order of one or more computers and one or more combination of computers. All the computers used for that purpose during the period shall be treated for the purposes of this section as constituting a single computer. Subsection 4, it talks about certificate. It says where it is desired to give a statement in evidence by virtue of the section, a certificate doing any of the following things, that is identifying the electronic record, giving particulars of the device involved in the production of that electronic record, and dealing with any of the matters to which the conditions mentioned in subsection 2 relate. So these conditions have to be satisfied when we are talking about the certificate. Now, I would try to simplify the section because sometimes it's not very easy to understand this. The first subsection 2 talks about the conditions. There are two types of conditions. It talks about conditions relating to the computer and conditions relating to the information. And the question is, what are the conditions relating to the computer? It says the computer should be regularly used to store or process information. The kind of activity which was carried on and in the process of which the record was created should be regularly carried on. The computer has to be in lawful control, and the computer must be working properly during the relevant time. Second, it talks about the information. So what are the conditions as to the information? It says the information has to be fed into the computer in ordinary course of activities, and the information has to be such which is derived from the information which is already fed in the computer in ordinary course of activities. Then I also went through subsection 3, where it says by combination of computers, by different computers, So what does this mean? This refers to local area network and wide area network. To give you an example, suppose we have a lot of computers in the academy, and all of them are attached to a single server. So if data is fed into one computer, say computer A, and it is taken out from another computer, say computer B, so one cannot take the objection that the data is from two different computers. Despite the fact that it was fed into different computer and the printout or any other output has been taken out from a different computer. This is what this section protects. 65B3. It says all the computers which are attached to a server in local area network would constitute one computer for the purposes of this section. And next it talks about wide area network. It says that all the computers which are connected to wide area network would constitute one computer. Now, to give you an example, we all have our salaries in State Bank of India. Suppose one officer was posted in Ambala in 2019, and in 2020 that officer is there in Chandigarh, and that officer wants a statement of account of 2019, right? So will that officer go to Ambala to get that statement of account, or will it be feasible for him to get the statement of account from a local branch in Chandigarh? So instead of going to Ambala, that officer can get a statement of account from the local branch in Chandigarh. Now suppose, now this scenario is shifted to the court. Suppose there is one party who is using this kind of evidence in the court. Can the opposite party say that, you cannot rely upon this evidence because this evidence, the data was fed into one computer at a different place, altogether different place, where it was in control of somebody else, and the person who took out the output had absolutely no control at the time when the data was fed. So these are from two different computers, these are from two different places. You cannot rely upon this. So this is where 65B3 comes into operation. And 65B3 says, no, all the computers who are attached to the wide area network would constitute one computer for the purposes of this section. Now we come to 65B4, which is very, very important. Firstly, the question comes is, it says that a certificate can be issued by a person who is occupying a responsible official position in relation to the operation of relevant device or the management of relevant activities. So this is very important to understand. When any certificate comes to the court, we have to be very sure as to who is the person who could have issued that certificate. It has to be a person who is occupying the responsible official position in relation to the operation of the relevant device or the management of relevant activities, whichever is appropriate. Now, the next question is, what should be there in the certificate? What are the ingredients? What are the things which should be incorporated in the certificate? The first thing that should be mentioned in the certificate is it has to identify the electronic record. It has to be mentioned. Suppose the electronic record is contained in a CD, so it has to mention that the electronic record, the output is in CD. Then second is describe the manner in which the electronic record was produced. It has to describe the manner production of the output. Then furnish the particulars of the device involved in the production of that record as may be appropriate for the purpose of showing that the electronic record was produced by that computer. And next is that whatever conditions we have just discussed in B2, all these conditions have to be there in the certificate. And lastly, there has to be a signature of the person, the concerned person, the person who's competent to issue the certificate, and that person should also mention in the certificate that the certificate is correct to the best of his knowledge and belief. If the certificate is given in this form, so one can say it is in a correct format. Now the next question is, how will you decide? I have just told you about the things which should be there in the certificate, but in case of electronic evidence would be of different kinds. It's not that every day in every case a specific kind of electronic evidence is concerned. Electronic evidence would come, and we would have a set format that this is the certificate which should be there in every kind of electronic evidence. It's not like this. The exact contents of the certificate will depend on the specific nature of the electronic record. It is very important to see how the certificate has to be prepared, who is to issue the certificate, and the contents of the certificate would accordingly vary keeping in view the nature of the electronic record which is sought to be proved. Now I have given you a model affidavit. This was there in some authority of Honorable High Court, which right now I'm forgetting the citation. It's I think Sahi Exports or something like that. So this is the kind, they have given a format that if the electronic evidence is in the form of a email, this is what should be there in the affidavit certificate. Now I have suppose the call detail records are coming in the court. So one has to write. It should be written on the top that this is to certify that I am occupying such and such position in the company or whatever. Then you have to write the name of the electronic record, and you also have to write what is the make, what is the model, what is the serial number. All these things have to be there. Then suppose it's a call detail record, the information that the electronic records are generated automatically, this has to be there through the I have the format right now with me. This is a kind of just to give you a rough idea as to what should be there in the uh, this thing. I have a hard copy. अमन क्या हम दिखा सकते हैं अभी ये hard copy? दिखाओ. अच्छा. Okay. दिखाओ. So this is how, in case of a call detail records, the certificate regarding 65B should be prepared. And of course, you are not going to prepare the document, but you have to know what all things have to be there in the certificate. And this is a pro forma regarding email. If an email comes to the court, so these things have to be there in the certificate. Now, the electronic evidence has come to the court, certificate has been produced, all the ingredients as mentioned in the certificate, as I just discussed, are there in the certificate. So the question of genuineness would arise after that. Firstly, the document has been produced, certificate has been given, and if at all the other party feels that there is a question about the authenticity of the document, only after the production of the document in accordance with 65B, the question of genuineness would arise. So in case there is a question about the genuineness of the record, so we have section 45A of the Evidence Act, which says that we can seek the opinion of the expert. There is a very good authority of Honorable Supreme Court, State of Delhi versus Muhammad Afzal and others. I could not find its citation. It says that when an electronic record has been produced in the court following due procedure as prescribed under section 65B, then the other party cannot just raise theoretical and general apprehensions. The other party cannot say that, oh, it is fake, it is manipulated, it is fabricated, and then the whole thing would go to the expert and for his opinion. It's not like this. Honorable Supreme Court says that if someone challenges the accuracy of an electronic evidence or record on the ground of misuse of system or operating failure or interpolation, then that person must come up with some kind of a substance in his allegations. It should not be vague. He should not come up with a vague allegation that it is forged and fabricated. So this is another authority which talks about how collection, preservation, and production in the court is very, very important. It says that, when one is collecting the evidence, of course, we will not come to the picture when the evidence is being collected, but, we would be appreciating the evidence only when it is produced in the court. But we have to know how collection of the evidence is important, how preservation of the, evidence is important. Till the evidence is produced in the court, we have to be sure that, at the time of collection, there was nothing which could destroy or temper the evidence, and it was preserved properly. We come across a situation like this every day in the court, where one party is standing over there, with a mobile in his hand and showing it to the court and saying that I have a very important video recording in the mobile and I want to place it on record, or I have a very important audio recording and I want it to make the, want to place it on record. So the question is, if something is there on mobile, how to, produce it, how to place it on record, and how will it be made admissible? To give you an example, suppose there is a video in my mobile. I have made the video using this mobile and I want to place it on record. So I have two options with me. Either I place the original media on record, which is my mobile, if I can afford to do that. This is primary evidence under section 62. And in case of a primary evidence, of course, there is no need of a certificate under section 65B. And if I'm making a copy, if I'm, transferred the contents to a copy, to a CD or a DVD, then I need to attach a certificate of 65B along with it. So this is how the electronic evidence should come on record. This is another authority which is very, very important, where Honorable Supreme Court says that source and authenticity are two most important things as far as electronic evidence is concerned. In electronic evidence, the entire emphasis is on establishing the authenticity of the electronic evidence. We have to kind of establish that the document on which we are relying upon is authentic, it is genuine, it has not been fabricated. So for that, we need to go back to the source to find out that what is the source, where is it coming from, who created it, where was it created, when was it created, and how it was created, what device was used in creation of the document. All these things are very, very important. In this case, what happened was there was a digital voice recorder. It was a case of corruption. In corruption cases, normally what they do is they send the complainant with the digital voice recorder, and the complainant goes to the accused and talks to him and records the entire conversation where the accused is asking for some kind of a consideration for doing his duty. So this is recorded in the voice recorder. So in this case, similarly, some recording was done, and a transcript was also placed on record, which should normally be done in case of an audio recording. It should be filed in the court along with the transcript. So transcript was also there. So this digital voice recorder was sent to FSL for comparison, for establishing its authenticity, not comparison. And the FSL did not give its report. They said that the voice was not audible, therefore it was not possible to give any kind of report regarding the recording, the electronic record. Now the complainant said that the transcript is there. He requested the court that the reliance be placed on the transcript because it's a true copy, it's word by word the same copy. Honorable Supreme Court refused to rely upon the copy. Honorable Supreme Court says that when original is not there, when the source is not there, how can one vouch for the authenticity of the document? So if authenticity has to be proved, the source has to be there on record. Next is cell phone recording. Suppose you're confronted with a situation like this, where call detail records have come to the court, and a certificate is not there, right? So the law on the point is, it was State versus Navjot Sandhu. It's a famous parliament attack case. In this case, call detail recordings were there, but a certificate was not there. So when the matter was before Honorable Supreme Court, it was argued on behalf of the defense that 65B talks about the certificate. That certificate has to be there with the electronic evidence. If certificate is there, one cannot rely upon the electronic evidence. But Honorable Supreme Court did not agree with the contention of the defense. It was held in this case that a witness who brought the call detail records, he stepped into the witness box, he submitted about all the conditions which are there in B2 and all those conditions which should be there in the certificate in his oral deposition. He was cross-examined at length. So this is sufficient compliance. And Honorable Supreme Court also held that 65B is only one of the ways to prove electronic evidence. In situation like this, we can always refer to 63 and 65 of the Evidence Act. So call detail records were held to be admissible. Call detail records were held admissible in this case, even without the certificate. Now came Anwar PV versus PK Bashir, which is another, it's a landmark authority on the point. It says that certificate is mandatory if electronic evidence is being given in the court. It said that secondary data in CD, DVD, pen drive is not admissible without a certificate under Section 65B or of the Evidence Act. Electronic evidence without certificate cannot be proved by oral evidence. Opinion of the expert cannot be resorted to make such electronic evidence admissible. So the only option to prove the electronic evidence is by producing the original electronic media as primary evidence or its copy by way of secondary evidence under Section 65B of the Evidence Act. Another authority which is very important and regarding which, a lot of objection is taken in the court. This is when the call detail records come to the court. Sometimes what happens is, suppose the call detail records were pertain to the year 2019, and it is being produced in the court in 2020. Now the server in charge was somebody else in 2019, and the person who's standing in the court and who has got the call detail records has subsequently taken over. So in the chief examination, the first thing that he says that I joined such and such company as server in charge in the year 2020. Now the defense, what they do is they start cross-examining on this point only, that the call detail records were recorded in the server in 2019, and that time you were not there. So how can you say that it was working properly, it was in lawful control, there has been no alteration and all these things? How can you give a certificate of 65B4? So this is a very good authority, Kundan Singh versus State. As of now, there are not many authorities on the point, in the sense like whatever authorities I get, even if it's from a different high court, I have incorporated it because it's still evolving. The law on electronic evidence is still evolving, and normally I include authorities only from Honorable Supreme Court and our High Court. So this is from Delhi High Court, which says that a person who has subsequently taken over charge of such computer can issue a certificate under Section 65B of the Indian Evidence Act. Because our concern is that the relevant device which produced this document was working properly, it was in lawful control. So Honorable High Court was of the opinion that this entire thing can be found out from the system logs. This is not something which is within the personal knowledge of a person, and for which a person who was there as server in charge has to come to the court. Now can there be a situation when 65B of the Evidence Act be waived? Anwar Bashir says that it's mandatory. You have to give a certificate, but at the same time, if the other party admits, suppose a CD has been given in the court or a DVD has been given in the court, and the other party admits the document, then of course there is no need to give the certificate. And this objection relates to the mode of proof. So if the law says, the lot of authorities of Honorable Supreme Court and our Honorable High Court which say that objection regarding mode of proof, if it is not taken at the appropriate stage, it is deemed to be waived. So it is very important if the other party is taking an objection, it should be taken at the appropriate time, the time when the other party is trying to put an exhibit. And if the other party, opposite party has not taken the objection and the document has been exhibited, then this objection stands waived. Now, another very important point which comes in the court is, I remember there was this case which involved an electronic evidence. There was a CD, right? And the witness who got the CD, he was not ready to give a certificate of 65B4. So the lawyer requested that he is present in the court, instead of a certificate, please record his oral testimony. He's there, he'll take oath, he'll be cross-examined. So why should one insist on a certificate? So as a prudent person, one would think that yes, this is also justifiable. If the witness is not comfortable giving a certificate, let's record his oral testimony. What is the problem? He, after all, we have ways of checking his credentials, his reliability. We would administer oath to him, and he's there in the court. He would be cross-examined. So let's record his oral testimony. But the authorities are against this view. In case something like this happens in your court, please insist on a certificate. No witness can orally depose about the conditions which have to be mentioned in the certificate. One authority, of course, is Parliament attack case, which allowed oral evidence. Instead of a certificate, they said oral evidence is good enough. But it has been overruled by Anwar Bashir. Anwar Bashir has clearly and categorically stated that oral testimony cannot be recorded. Certificate has to be there along with the electronic evidence. Another authority is Jagdev Singh versus State, where it was held that oral evidence cannot be given. It said when the statute requires something to be done in a particular manner, it has to be done in that manner alone and none else. So a certificate has to be there, no oral testimony. Now, another point which is relevant for family court judges is whether even in family code one is required to furnish a certificate. So Section 14 of Family Courts Act relaxes application of Indian Evidence Act to proceedings in family court. So if it is a family court matter, and the family court judges can please note that we do not have to follow the strict provisions of the Evidence Act. If some evidence has come and certificate is not there, so it can still be placed on record. Now this is Shafi Muhammad. We would not be discussing it because now Anwar Bashir said that certificate is mandatory, and it was Shafi Muhammad which said that certificate is not always mandatory. Now Anwar Bashir is a 3-judge bench and Shafi Muhammad was a 2-judge bench. So it created some kind of problem. Now the matter has been referred to a larger bench, and so for the time being we can leave Shafi Muhammad. Another amendment which is very important from the working of the point of view of the court, from the point of view of the working of the court is Bankers Book Evidence Act. Section 2A has been amended. Now 3 certificates are required to be given if a statement of account comes from the bank. One is a certificate of authenticity, which has to come from the principal accountant or the branch manager. Second is authenticity certificate from person in charge of computer system, and the details of the computer system, process of data storage, and safeguard to protect computer system and data. All these things have to be mentioned in this. And a further certificate, another certificate from person in charge of the computer system to the effect that to the best of his knowledge and belief, such computer system operated properly at the material time. So this is about the Bankers Book Evidence Act. Now, another very important question which comes to the court is, what is the prima facie value of evidence? Because all these authorities, and it says that the general law is that before you rely upon the electronic evidence, it has to be authenticated, it has to be proved. But we come across electronic evidence even at the time of bail, at the time of stay matter, and one cannot ignore evidence, which is an important piece of evidence at that point of time. So I came across this authority. It said that at the time of consideration of bail application, it is not at all necessary to ask the prosecution to first satisfy the fulfillment of all the criteria laid down in the case of Anwar Bashir. So therefore, it clearly says that if arguments on stay application are going on, or we are considering a bail application and some electronic evidence is there at stage, it can be relied upon. This is another authority of Honorable Supreme Court, the state of Karnataka versus HR Higher Math. It says failure to produce certificate under Section 65B of the Evidence Act with charge sheet is not fatal to the prosecution. Now, ideal stage is that the document should come initially only when in criminal cases, when the challan is being filed in the court, then electronic evidence is there and the certificate should also be there. But if at all the certificate is not there, it is not fatal to the prosecution. Similarly, in civil cases, suppose the petition is filed and some electronic evidence is there and certificate is not there at the at that point of time, and the party wants to produce the certificate at a later stage, either at the time of recording of evidence or even after that. So after moving an application, so that can be allowed. This is our High Court, Poonam Thakur versus State of Haryana and another. In this case, what happened was there was a pen drive and it was placed on record along with the challan, but certificate was not there. And charge was framed by the trial court. It was a case under POCSO. So matter went to Honorable High Court. And Honorable High Court says that even though there has to be a strict compliance of Section 65B of the Evidence Act, non-compliance of the same would not render the said document inadmissible at the time of framing of the charge. So at the time of framing of the charge, we can consider whatever electronic evidence is there on record. And we have more authorities on the point as to what is the stage of furnishing certificate. What is the stage at which the certificate can be furnished? Kundan Singh versus State and Paras Jain versus State of Rajasthan. These are two authorities which say that even if it has not been furnished initially, like with a challan in a criminal case and along with other documents in a civil case, it can be furnished later on also. It can be allowed to be placed on record by way of application under Section 311 or 91 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. Fresh certificate can also be given. Suppose a certificate has been given in the court, but the party realizes that it is defective in the sense it does not contain the ingredients which should be there in the certificate, and the party proposes to file a fresh certificate. So in this authority, it was held that fresh certificate can be produced later on. We have discussed the procedure that the 65B certificate has to be there and what is the stage at which it should be produced. But, we have discussed certain authorities also, but mode and manner of admissibility of electronic record is still not settled. There's still uncertainty as to what is the manner of making the electronic evidence admissible. It's still not settled as to what is the appropriate procedure for admission and appreciation of electronic evidence under Section 65B. But one thing is clear, there is no set formula. You cannot say that this is the formula and you apply this to an electronic evidence and the electronic evidence is approved. This is not like this. There is an authority of Tukaram S. Digole versus it's of Honorable Supreme Court. It says that technology is changing by the day. Every day a new version comes or an upgraded version of the technology comes. So it is just not possible to lay down any exhaustive rules. And rightly so, because one day one technology is there, you acquaint yourself with that technology and very next day the technology changes. So of course one cannot have exhaustive rules regarding what manner has to be adopted regarding the admissibility of electronic record, what mode should be there. It would depend on the kind of evidence that is produced in the court. Standard of proof would always vary according to the nature of evidence. If it is a CCTV footage, it's going to be different. If it's a printout, it's a call detail record, digital photographs. So standard of proof would never be the same. There is going to be some difference. Of course, it has to be according to Section 65B only, because that is the only provision which deals with electronic evidence. But we cannot say that there has to be some set formula. Another evidence which comes on file is from internet. Like we have this evidence in the form of data and postings. Sometimes document comes from a government website. Sometimes the document is there on private website. So we will have to accordingly decide as to what method and what procedure has to be adopted. This is another case which is very important from the point of view of electronic evidence. A lot of electronic evidence was there in this case. We all know that the girl was abducted. She had boarded the bus from outside a mall, and from that point, wherever the bus was moving around, there were a lot of hotels which had CCTV cameras installed, and the entire thing was captured. So all that CCTV footage came on record, and it was accompanied by a 65B certificate, and Honorable Supreme Court relied upon the document, electronic evidence. So this is a very important authority from the point that once you go through this authority, you will come to know what kind of evidence should be there if CCTV footage comes on the file, who other witnesses have to be examined. So another important area is service of summons through electronic means. What should be done? Like suppose one feels that a summons be sent through electronic means. What is the provision regarding that? Is there any provision in law? And are there any authorities? As far as civil case is concerned, we have Order 5, Sub-Rule 3 of Rule 9 of Order 5. The service of summons may be made by delivering or transmitting a copy thereof by registered post, acknowledgement due, addressed to the defendant, to accept the service, or by speed post, or by such courier service as are approved by the High Court, or by any other means of transmission of documents, including fax message or electronic mail service, provided rules are made by the High Court. So rules have to be made by Honorable High Court, and the rule says the service of process to the other party in civil case. So one has to be clear that it's only in civil cases, can also be effected through electronic means where the party has furnished the requisite details. So that means there is a provision. High Court rules and orders also provide this service of summons can be done through electronic means. But one thing one should note, that no party can claim it as a matter of right. Nobody can say that I will send the summons only by mail, or the summons would be sent only by WhatsApp or text message. So nobody can claim it as a matter of right. Normal practice is to use the technology like WhatsApp or maybe mail as a last resort, where all other relevant means have been exhausted and the other party has still not been summoned. So we can resort to electronic means. This is Honorable Supreme Court, where summons were sent through email. Honorable Supreme Court says permitted the service of notice by email along with ordinary mode of serving notice. So ordinary mode of service was adopted along with it. The summons were sent through email also. So it's not like the only electronic method of service was adopted. It was adopted along with the traditional mode of service. Another authority on the point is Indian Bank Association and others versus Union of India. This is again Supreme Court, where in a 138 case, summons were sent by email as well. In Monica Rani and other versus State of Haryana, this is a case of runaway marriage, and the father of the girl had to be given a copy of the FDR. So Honorable High Court ordered for sending the copy of FDR through WhatsApp message. Summons have also been sent through WhatsApp, but this is not our Honorable High Court. This was Delhi High Court. Now, another important point is recording of evidence through video conferencing. This is again very important. Now, the relevant sections are Section 273 and Section 275 CRPC. 273 is relevant because it says that evidence has to be taken in the presence of the accused. So suppose in a criminal case, the prosecution moves an application for recording the testimony of a person through um, video conferencing. The defense normally comes up with an objection on the ground that uh, evidence has to be taken in the presence of accused only, and this is section 273. 275 is another section which says record in warrants cases. It says that evidence of each witness shall be taken down in writing either by the magistrate himself or by his dictation in open court and under his supervision. But it provides that evidence of a witness may also be recorded by audio, video, electronic means in the presence of the advocate of the person. So the first authority which is on the point is Basivraj R. Patil. This is of Honorable Supreme Court. Now this proviso in section 275 was added in the year 2009, and this authority came in the year 2000. So even before the amendment, Honorable Supreme Court was of the opinion that evidence should be allowed by way of video conferencing. It can be allowed in the circumstances so demand by way of video conferences. This is a case where the accused was not present in the court. He could not come to the court because of certain reason. He was suffering from some kind of an ailment and he was abroad. And his statement under section 313 CRPC had to be recorded. So Honorable Supreme Court allowed recording of his statement through video conferencing, and also observed that if a person residing in a remote area is required to appear in the court for giving evidence, then he should not be called from that place. Instead, the medium of video conferencing should be used. So we have authorities on the point. Amitabh Bagchi, Ina Bagchi is also an important authority. They have laid down certain safeguards also. This is also a very important case where Honorable Supreme Court allowed the testimony of a witness through video conferencing. Here the witness was abroad. He was in maybe in America or London. He refused to come to India for testimony. So Honorable Supreme Court says there is no reason why the examination of a witness by video conferencing should not be an essential part of electronic evidence. So even our own Honorable High Court has allowed a witness to depose through video chat on apps like WhatsApp or Skype. This Sucha Singh versus Ajmer Singh and others. So there are other authorities also on the point. Our High Court has come up with certain guidelines that if evidence has to be recorded through video conferences, certain guidelines have to be followed. These guidelines have been circulated to all the stations. Firstly, it says that VC in all matters, it can be done through video conferencing, bail applications, remand, and recording of witnesses, where the witness is located intrastate, interstate, or overseas. But these guidelines will not apply to 164 CRPC. The courts, the guidelines say that any person shall appear before it to give evidence or make a submission. So it can be done suo moto also or an application of the party. Then it talks about what all arrangements have to be made for video conferencing. It says that coordinators will be there both at the court point as well as at the remote point. In the High Court, the registrar computerization will be the coordinator, and in district courts, the official in charge of video conferencing facility, a senior personal assistant nominated by the district judge, would be the coordinator. And the coordinator at the remote point may be any of the following. Where the person to be examined is overseas, the coordinator would be official of consulate, Embassy of India. And where the person to be examined is in another state, then a judicial magistrate or any official deputed by district judge. And suppose the person is in jail, then superintendent. Where it's in hospital, then medical superintendent or in charge of the hospital. If the person is a juvenile or a woman in women rescue home, then in charge of these homes would be the person. So the person to be examined has to be available for video conferencing at the room earmarked for video conferencing at least 30 minutes before the scheduled time. And the certified copies or soft copies or all or any part of the court record uh, should be sent in advance to the witness. If the witness is deaf and dumb and a translator is required, then that should also be arranged before recording of the testimony. Cost of video conferencing in case of criminal cases, the court has to decide, and civil cases is the party making the request for recording evidence will give the cost. And this is very important, the identity of the person. This should be established. The court has to make sure as to the person who's going to depose is the same person who's been told that, which has been represented to the court that this is the witness who's going to depose. The identity of the person to be examined shall be confirmed by the court with the assistance of the coordinator at a remote point. This should also be ensured that there is nobody around, nobody is around the witness to prompt him to, when the evidence is being recorded. And video conferencing will take place during the court hours, but the court may pass suitable directions with regard to timing of the video conferencing wherever special circumstances exist. And the record of the proceedings, including transcription of a statement, shall be prepared at the court point. Then, this is important, the soft copy of the transcript, digitally signed by the coordinator at the court point, shall be sent by email through NIC or any other Indian service provider to the remote point where printout of the same will be taken and signed by the deponent. And then a scanned copy of the statement, which is digitally signed by the coordinator, would be sent by email through NIC or any other Indian service provider to the court. The hard copy would also be sent subsequently within 3 days, preferably within 3 days of the recording, to the coordinator at the remote point to the court point by courier or mail. So all these things have to be taken care of. And if the documents have to be put to the witness at a remote point, it is necessary, the court may permit the document to be put in an appropriate form. The document can also be put. You have to make sure that the person who's going to be examined can be seen and heard clearly. The camera can be adjusted. And residuary clause says such matters with respect to which no express provision has been made in this guideline shall be decided by the court, consistent with furthering the interest of the justice. So this is about video conferencing. These are the guidelines. And then I think the time is over. I'll take up question answers. I'll take up the questions now.
Okay, ma'am. Yeah. So we have got a couple of questions during the starting of the session itself. So I'm assuming that you have already addressed those questions, but I think a quick recap on it would be highly acceptable, ma'am. In the meantime, I'll request everyone to please, you can now fill in you can now raise your questions in the question answer section, and we'll take it from there. Ma'am, first question is from CGM Sir Gurdaspur. Talking about what is the evidentiary value of the certificate given in terms of Section 65B of Indian Evidence Act?
In case of what? What kind of evidence do you have? What is the electronic record along with which this certificate has come?
It's probably, I think, in that case.
Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought he can hear me. See, it depends on the kind of electronic record that has been produced on the file. If it's a CD, if it's a computer output, if it's a DVD, it has to be accompanied by a certificate. If certificate is there, it has a very high evidentiary value. But at the same time, you have to keep in mind where it's coming from. Who is producing the certificate on record. Suppose there is a document which is in my computer, right? I am the author of the document, and I have created the document on my system, and I give the certificate. I rely on the output. I go to the court. I give a certificate saying that the computer is in my possession. It is in my lawful control. There was no unauthorized access. and during the relevant time, the computer was working properly, and there has been no manipulation with the record, and that certificate has a high evidentiary value. But then again, it would depend on so many things as to what is the evidence, where is it coming from, who is producing the electronic record, whether he's the author, he just got hold of the document. There's so many things which have to be considered.
Ma'am, I think you already answered the second question itself, because the second question was how can the correctness of certificate under Section 65B of Evidence Act can be verified? So I think you've already answered that part as well. The question was that how this certificate, which is submitted under Section 65B, can be verified.
Verified as in, see, when a certificate of 65B4 comes before you, there would always be an output. There would always be some kind of electronic evidence, either it's in the form of a CD or in the form of a DVD or pen drive or anything. And 65B4 certificate would be there with along with the certificate. It is true that it is not possible to verify the document. Sitting in the court, because the judicial officers are not technology experts, they will not be able to find out whether the system was, suppose it is written in the certificate that the computer was working properly, it was in lawful control, and it was working properly. There is no way you can verify those things. So once a computer output comes in record and one certificate of 65B4 is there, an exhibit is put on record. If the other party is not challenging it, suppose there is no serious challenge to the record that has come on record, of course it is exhibited and it will be read in evidence. But at the same time, if the other party comes up with some kind of substantial objection regarding the admissibility of the record, the other party, suppose for instance, the other party says that the computer was not working properly, and I have proof that it was lying with somebody for fixing it. There was some problem in the computer. So in such a situation, when we have some kind of substance that during the relevant time the computer was not working properly, then we have an option that we can send the record for the opinion of the expert. But otherwise, when electronic record has been properly produced in the court and a certificate has been filed along with it, that's it. This is how the electronic evidence has to be produced in the court. If no serious objection comes, then see, after all, it is an objection regarding mode of proof. So there are numerous authorities on the point that if no objection regarding mode of proof comes at the appropriate time, that is the time when it is being exhibited, it will be deemed to be admitted. And we have discussed it also during the course of the lecture, that if the objection regarding mode of proof is not taken or the other party admits it, then it's for good. It is exhibited for good. So this kind of objection cannot even be taken in Honorable Supreme Court. This is Sonu versus State of Haryana. Honorable Supreme Court in Sonu versus State of Haryana says that once an electronic record comes and it is accompanied by a certificate, all the ingredients which should be there in the certificate are there in the certificate. Then, and if the other party does not take the objection of mode of proof, then it will be deemed to be admitted. We, we sitting over there, we cannot verify. We will have to go by what is there in the certificate. And if the other party comes up with some kind of a solid objection, then we will have to deal with it.
So I think at the end, only a certificate would be the primary,
No. You cannot say once the certificate comes and then everything is done. There's so many factors which have to be considered. Like for instance, what is proved? Section 3 of the Evidence Act says what is proved. You never view the evidence in isolation. You never just consider one document and say that, yeah, this fact is proved or not proved. Section 3 says that the judge, after considering entire facts and circumstances on the file, after considering the entire material, if comes to the fact that this fact is established, then it is proved. So similarly, in case of electronic evidence also, we cannot say once the document 165B comes, then one should not be bothered about anything else. But we have to do so many, consider so many other things. I'll give you another point on this. Suppose the certificate comes, but you know what? We see it every day in the courts that witnesses are sometimes do tell lies, and whatever is written in the certificate might not be true. So, what is even more reliable than that is the metadata and the hash value. So metadata is always there, so court can always say that you filed the metadata or the hash. If the hash value of the document is there on record, then one can vouch for the authenticity of the document. So these are the things that, despite the certificate, sometimes one cannot be 100% sure that this is genuine document. So there are other ways. Then metadata is there, hash value is there.
Wow. Ma'am, now something similar to the talking about certificate, but in this, the question is, if the certificate is not available, and this is in respect to if the proof is of WhatsApp messages or emails or anything that is like an SMS contained in the mobile phone, what is the evidentiary value if the certificate is not provided?
See, if the party is placing on record something which is there in his mobile, so there are two options. One is that the party gives the original media, the original document. That is, he will have to place on record the mobile. So there in mobile, which is original media, because it is the original thing is there in the mobile. The message is there in the mobile. The WhatsApp is there in the mobile. So either you place on record the original device, and then in that case there is no need of the certificate. But if at all you are transferring the contents to a CD or a DVD, then you need a certificate under section 65B4. So these are the two ways. Original, if you're giving original, no requirement of a certificate, but if you're giving a copy, then certificate has to be there.
Absolutely, ma'am. I think that's what you detailed in your lecture as well, that original thing has been submitted, then there is nothing required. And if the copy is made, obviously authenticity of that copy has to be put into place as well. Thank you for that, ma'am. Moving to the next question. The question is that how should we record evidence in virtual courts? Do we have the technical know-how among all the stakeholders, including lawyers, witnesses, and the litigation? And this is a very common question. I think it was asked in Balram sir's session as well.
See, nowadays we will have to do something about a recording of evidence through virtual means. Like in reality, it's not happening, but in the court, it's not happening. But we are doing it through the video conferencing or WhatsApp or Skype. As far as provisions are concerned, I have discussed the provisions. The legal backing is there, provision is there that you can record the evidence through video conferencing. As far as authorities are concerned, we have the authorities also of Honorable Supreme Court and our High Court also, where High Court says that one can record the evidence through video conferencing. As far as now the things which have to be kept in mind while recording the evidence is there. It is there in the guidelines. That the witness is at a remote place, and then you can record his testimony. But of course, it's going to be very tough if you think that the advocate should also not appear in the court, and the only the judges sitting, and witnesses are not there, and parties are not there, and everything is happening through the computers. As of now, I really don't think that we have that much of a technical. We in the courts we do not have this system in place, because right now the arguments are going on through the computers, and sometimes it becomes difficult. Like, for example, if a witness is being recorded through video conferencing and the other party wants to show a document to the witness, sometimes there are network problems and sometimes visibility problems. Even the witness is not able to see the document properly. So, we have another point is that we have courts at the remote places where there is no accessibility to the network. So as of now, it's tough. But maybe in near future, this would become a reality, because after all, we are talking about e-courts, we are talking about e-governance. So might just happen in future. But as of now, if one feels that during the prevalence of COVID and in the next few months, I don't see it happening that way.
Ma'am, you talked about that someone, the witness is in the remote area of India. Something similar. Now the question is about the means and the application that we can use. So
हाँ
now
जी,
the question is about that the witness is in abroad.
हाँ
Can
जी.
use WhatsApp to to communicate and to record the the testimony.
See, I have just gone through the guidelines which have been provided by our Honorable High Court, and the guidelines clearly say that one has to the evidence has to be recorded through embassy. It has to be through the consulate. But at the same time, there are authorities. If some problem is there, our High Court only had allowed the testimony to be recorded through WhatsApp and Skype. So authorities are there, but it's better that if it is done through embassy, that would always be better. See, the ideal situation as far as examination of witnesses is concerned, that is the court environment, because here you can, when a witness appears to the court, he is an off the court, and oath is administered to the witness, and then the witness is cross-examined, and you can observe the demeanor of the witness. There's so many things, So that is the ideal situation, ideal setting for examination of the evidence. So video conferencing is in those cases where it is just not possible for the witness to come. So if you're allowing video conferencing, you should at least make sure that it is through embassy.
Okay, ma'am. Now I think the next question is something on the similar lines, because when we talk about recording the evidence through VC, what is the guarantee, or how do we ensure that witness is not under any influence during the recording of evidence? I think what you said about embassy should be involved.
Yeah.
That will
See,
take
if it is, that will take care of it.
Yes. Moving to the next question, ma'am. Now talking about again, Section 65B is in question of Evidence Act. The question is that does this Section 65A applies in case of secondary evidence only, or is it also applicable in the primary evidence?
65A merely refers to 65B. 65A says that the contents of electronic record may be proved in accordance with 65B, and it is the 65B which talks about the procedure in case of secondary evidence. It does not talk about the original media. See, if the original media has to be produced in the court, that is, original document has to be produced in the court, whether it's a traditional physical document or it is an electronic evidence, both have to be made admissible following procedure under Section 62. As far as secondary evidence is concerned, in case of a physical document, we will have to look into 63 and 65, and in case of electronic evidence, 65B is the only procedure that we have to follow.
Okay, well, I think I think there are a few more questions which would need more clarity on 65B. The question is from Gurdaspur Additional District Judge, sir. The question is when the question is that oral disposition of regards to certificate under Section 65B is not permissible.
What? Please repeat.
Ma'am, the question is the oral disposition of regards to certificate under Section 65B is not permissible. Question is whether in these days when the problem of COVID-19 is happening and the need of arising recording evidence through video conferencing, whether it will be possible to give electronic evidence through video conferencing also.
See, as far as electronic evidence is concerned, one has to keep it in mind that by its nature, it is a very sensitive kind of evidence. It can be manipulated easily, it can be altered, it can be fabricated. So that is why a special procedure has been provided under Section 65B. If we do away with this procedure, so there is, how would you vouch for the authenticity? Because after all, it is the authenticity, it is the reliability, it is the integrity of the electronic evidence, which is more important. So if we start, taking on record, say if the party is tendering just a printout and it is being placed on record and, we are recording the oral testimony of a witness through video conferencing when oral testimony has been specifically categorically prohibited by Honorable Supreme Court, can we go against that? So that should not be done. When a law says that something has to be done in a particular manner, it has to be done in that manner alone. So we will have to kind of, as far as this scenario is concerned, Right now also, I don't think we are recording evidence in the court. I am not aware because I'm in the academy. I think that the regular working has not resumed. So, and but it cannot be done. Oral testimony as of now, see, again, this law is still evolving. As of now, there is no authority on the point that if a situation like this come, of course, there cannot be an authority because the situation has emerged only now. But there is a complete prohibition that we cannot record the oral testimony of the witness, and the certificate has to be given. Maybe tomorrow if we have some kind of an authority that in situations like this, one can dispense with the requirement, but then I would not want to say anything on this because whatever is the law is the law. We have to follow that.
And I think we have to wait for that time to come in when the precedent has.
Yeah,
Yes.
when some precedent, some authority, some judicial review is there on the point.
Now, we talked about that electronic evidence. We talked about recording of electronic evidence. Is it required that whenever there's electronic evidence has been submitted, should it go through the FSL for authentication before it can be relied upon?
This is not what the procedure says. 65B says that when a party is relying on electronic evidence, if the party submits a certificate under section 65B(4) and all the things that is Anwar Bashir has, Honorable Supreme Court has laid down 6 parameters which should be there in the certificate. That is 4 things, that is 2 conditions regarding the computer and 2 conditions regarding the information and 2 more conditions which have been mentioned in 65B(4). If these 6 parameters are there, then it has to be exhibited in the court. And then once document, please repeat your question. I've lost track.
Ma'am, I'll just. So the question was that whenever we are submitting electronic evidence, do we need to go through the FSL first before we rely?
Yeah. I just referred State versus Muhammad Afzal, where Honorable Supreme Court made it very clear that once an evidence has been produced in the court following due procedure under section 65B, we should not send the evidence for FSL only because the other party comes up and says that this is manipulated. See, this kind of objection would always be there. Because if, let's take a hypothetical situation. There is, I am the author of a document. The computer is in my possession. I create some document on my laptop, and I give a certificate that I have created this document on my laptop, and I'm producing it in the court. Now, the other party has no way of knowing whether the computer was working properly or not, whether it was in lawful control, whether there was unauthorized access or not. The other party would absolutely not know about these things. So their objections are merely going to be speculative. And the standard form of objection, which is normally taken in the courts, is that this is manipulated, this is fabricated, this is the normal objection. So it does not mean that the moment his objection regarding fabrication is taken, we will send the document to FSL. This is what Honorable Supreme Court says, that if the other party is raising an objection, it says that the record is not authentic, they should come up with something, there should be substance in the allegation, in the objection. It should not be vague. So the procedure that before it comes to the court, it should be accompanied by the report of FSL. It's not there in the procedure.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am, for that. Now I'll be clubbing 2 questions, ma'am. This question is these questions are primarily about social media taking as the evidence. The question is that in case of the primary electronic evidence is in possession of the accused, who has made a copy of it on some media, say like pen drive or some memory stick, and which has been recovered from him under Section 27 of Evidence Act, which is a prosecution wants to prove during trial, then whether certificate under 65B is required. If yes, who will issue it?
See, when the accused is apprehended, normally nowadays what is the police doing is, whenever any accused is apprehended, the first thing, even before asking the name, they check for his mobile. And his mobile, the first thing that is done is the mobile is taken into possession, because they're heavily relying upon the call detail records and other data which is there in the mobile. But at the same time, it has to be kept in mind that if in your question you're talking about a copy, that accused has made a copy. Now, the accused cannot give a certificate under Section 65B4 because Article 23 of the 20 subclause 3 of the Constitution completely prohibits self-incrimination. So we cannot take a certificate from the accused. In such a situation, what the prosecution do is that seize the original media. Suppose it's in his computer, the prosecution can take into possession the hard disk, or if it's a mobile, the court can seize the mobile. So though in case of an accused, only original can be produced, a copy will be without a certificate. So it has to be the original.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, would this be in the same context we spoke about a few minutes back, that if there's any SMSs, if there's any WhatsApp that needs to be taken as into evidence, the primary source, that is your mobile phone, has to be submitted in the court. Otherwise, if it's a copy, then the certificate is required. Ma'am, the question is that in case we are referring to any social media post like Facebook or Instagram, so I think this, even in this scenario, the same thing will apply?
It's different. It will be different in this scenario. As I said, that the standard will vary from case to case. In case of suppose something is there on Facebook. Now here the original is with the Facebook. It is in their server, and servers are all located abroad. In case of Skype, in case of WhatsApp, in case of Facebook. So in this situation, the original cannot come. You know. So here we will have to draw a distinction between the content owner and a content viewer. Here the content owner is Facebook. The original content is in the server, which is located miles away, which we cannot get. The original cannot be brought into the court. So here we would have to kind of consider as to what is the best evidence available with the party. Let's take a hypothetical situation. Suppose there is a dispute between husband and wife, and husband posts some obscene material regarding the wife on the Facebook, and wife goes to the police station and lodges a complaint. Now here she takes out a printout and she goes to the police and lodges the complaint. Here original is with the Facebook. Now the husband, he would not give that post. He, of course, when the IO approaches him and asks him, he might just delete that post, and he would say that he is not concerned with that post. And another problem with these kind of social media posts is that anybody can create a account in anybody's name. So one can never be 100% sure that this account belongs to a particular person. So what we have to consider in such a circumstances is, where is the original? Who is the owner of the original? Where is the computer which is holding the original document? If we come to the conclusion that original is somewhere else from where it cannot be brought to the court, then we have to consider what is the best evidence now. Here in such a scenario, husband has deleted the post. The original would not come from the Facebook server. So best we have is the printout that the wife has taken from the internet. So in such a situation, since she has viewed this on the Facebook, she should be allowed to place that certificate 65B4 only to the extent that this information was there on the internet. I viewed it. This is defamatory, and I have taken out the printout, and the printout is the correct representation of it. Correctly represents what is there on the internet. This is the certificate that she can give. This is the only way. And of course, if the party wants to corroborate further, there could be since you said Facebook, there could be a witness. On Facebook, there's so many people who are connected. So if some other person, some friend of the girl or some of her family members have seen the post, they can come to the court and orally depose that yes, they had seen this post on internet and it was posted by the husband. So this can be done. So we have to, then in such a scenario, we would have to consider the best evidence rule as to what is the best evidence available with us.
So I think there'll be a lot of ambiguity around this, because proving of this would be a bit of a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. See, as I said, it's a very complicated area, and it is, as of now, there's so much of uncertainty about the mode and manner of proving a particular document. Every moment, all of us are generating so much of data. All of us are using our mobiles. We're sending photographs, videos, messages, and this could be a potential evidence in court in case of a dispute. So there are n number of situations which would not be covered under 65b4. So I was hearing a lecture of some expert, and he said it was a cyber expert who had come to the academy, and he says there is no single law in the whole world which would cover all the situations which would arise under the electronic evidence. So this is very peculiar problems we would face. Original, of course, would not be possible to come in certain cases. To give you an example, suppose a party takes out a printout of a Google Earth picture. Okay? He comes across this Google Earth picture, he takes out a printout and he wants to use it during trial as evidence. Can he give a certificate about the functioning of the computer? He cannot. There is no way he can get the original. So in such a circumstance, then we would have to rely on the best evidence.
I think I lost you. Can you hear me? Just stay with us, everyone. I'm gonna just check.
Disconnected.
Yeah, ma'am. I think there was some problem.
Hello? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Anji, next question, please.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. In case of criminal cases, the electronic record has been furnished with the challan in distorted form to cause prejudice to the accused. Then, at the framing of charge itself, what is the remedy?
No. What is in the distorted form?
Ma'am, the challan.
Challan is distorted, matlab? Okay, you please read the question.
Okay, I'll repeat it again from starting. It says it's a criminal case and the electronic record has been furnished with a challan in a distorted form.
The electronic record is distorted, maybe. Okay.
Yes. To cause prejudice to the accused. Then at the framing of charge itself, what is the remedy with the accused and what is the role of the court?
Firstly, in this question, it has not been clarified whether it's a copy or not. If the original media has been produced, suppose the electronic evidence is in the mobile, and mobile has been placed on record along with the challan, and if it is become distorted or it is destroyed, then we cannot do anything. Of course, we cannot rely upon it. This will not be relied upon, right? And second is that if a copy is distorted, if there's something wrong with the copy, we can always ask for the original. Suppose a CD has been filed in the court and the contents are not clear in the CD, the court can always ask the prosecution to file the original, the hard disk which is seized by the prosecution in the court, and one can then do. Here I would like to add one thing, that whenever any electronic evidence is filed with the challan and the accused is entitled to a copy thereof, the accused is entitled to a mirror image of the original electronic evidence. So accused is entitled to a copy, and when the courts are ensuring that a copy is given to the accused, the court should also ensure that the prosecution should be asked that you please make 4 or 5 copies, and original media should not be accessed. There should be a backup copy which should be accessed whenever that electronic evidence has to be viewed in the court, whenever evidence has to be recorded, or sometimes, suppose a copy is given to the accused and he loses that copy. Maybe he, it's misplaced, and the accused wants another copy maybe. So, we can make a copy from other copies. We should not access the original electronic evidence because it might just get altered. Wow. So it is very important that whenever challan is filed, 4 or 5 copies are filed with it.
Okay. Okay, noted. Thank you so much, ma'am. Moving to the next question. Now we were talking about recording the evidence through VC. The question is pertaining to the same thing. If the evidence has been recorded through VC, can that can it be recorded for the purpose of record?
Can be recorded for the purpose of record? What is the question? I'm not understanding the question.
It says, I'll read it by word. Can the evidence which is being recorded through VC be recorded for the purpose of record?
Maybe the officer is trying to say that can it be regarded as evidence? Maybe can we regard it as electronic evidence? Can it fall into the category of electronic evidence? Maybe this is what he's trying to say. See, if through video conferencing we are recording the evidence in the court, so this firstly this will not fall into the definition of document, because this is just a means, a method that we have adopted for recording the evidence, and we will have to consider the definition of evidence. Now, oral evidence. What is oral evidence? Oral evidence is when the witnesses come to the court, they orally depose in the court on some issue which is there in the between the parties. And documentary evidence is when a document is submitted to the court for inspection of the court. So if we say that video conferencing, the whole thing, the record should be regarded as electronic evidence, firstly, recording of video conferencing does not fall into the definition of document. If it is not a document, it will not fall into the definition of electronic evidence. Like similarly, in the court also, when we are recording the evidence using the computers, can we say that whatever we have recorded, the court proceedings become documentary evidence? This is not documentary evidence, because we are using the computer as a typewriter. We just type the evidence, the printout is printout of the same is taken, it is placed on record. The parties, of course, the witness affixes a signature, the court affixes its signature, and it becomes the hard copy becomes a part of the court recording. And this is not this cannot be considered as documentary evidence, certainly not electronic evidence. No, this is.
So,
I hope I understood his question correctly, because
I have also raised the question to the person concerned. So if I think just asking for clarity, I think if I receive a reply right now, I will also get that included in this session. Ma'am, now question is pertaining to we spoke about that if the mobile is if the SMS is being as a evidence, or WhatsApp is being evidence, so we can simply take the mobile as in the court, and no certificate would be required. There's a question from one of the member saying that, and he is referring to a case of Jatinder Pal Singh of 2018 by Honorable Punjab and Haryana High Court, wherein the where it was held that 65B insists for certificate without making distinction between primary or secondary evidence. So
no, what 65 insists for?
Certificate without making a distinction between it if it's a primary evidence or a secondary evidence. So basically, he's saying that the certificate is required at all times.
Yeah, he says his question is that even in case of original, we would require the certificate.
Yes.
I don't think this is the situation. In case of original, there are a whole lot of authorities. Even in Jatinder Pal was about a audio recording, where an audio recording was in question, and the party was trying to place on record a CD, and the party wanted that it should be sent to FSL for establishing its authentication. So our Honorable High Court had declined the request, saying that see, it has not come on record where the recording had taken place, what device was used for recording this audio, who had recorded the audio, and other circumstances have not been brought on record. The party has just relied upon the CD. The party has just placed on record the CD, and without establishing the source, CD cannot be sent to FSL. This is what Jatinder Pal said. Now, coming to second part of the question, you said even in the original electronic evidence certificate would be required. No, this is not the situation. 65B talks about a computer output. If you go through 65B1, it says computer output would be deemed to be a document provided following conditions are satisfied, the conditions which have been mentioned in 65B2. And it says then in such a situation, there is no requirement of production of the original. So 65B2 talks only about the secondary evidence and not about the primary evidence. If primary evidence is there, certificate is certainly not required. I'm 101% sure about this. You please go through Anwar and Bashir, you go through 65B2, 65B2 lays down the procedure in case of secondary evidence. It's not like this.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, case is something now similar. I think it's again talking about 65B of Evidence Act. Now it talks about there's a CCTV footage. There was a CCTV footage. The first data was copied from the CCTV to the DVR of the computer. And then from computer to a CD.
It was copied to a CD.
Yes. So the copy was made from a copy. Whether this is admissible and who will be the competent to give the certificate on that copy?
See, a copy has to be made from original. Yes. One thing has to be very, very clear. Original, the law regarding original is very clear. Let me start from here. See, the authority Sanjay Singh Ramrao Chauhan made it very clear that without source, you cannot vouch for authenticity of the document. Source has to be there. That means original has to be there. And then a copy has to be made from the original. And if a copy comes to the record, it has to be accompanied by a certificate. So if it is a copy of a copy and there is no original in existence, I really don't think you can rely upon this kind of evidence. No. Without original, if you're trying to make a copy out of a copy, and no, it's not permissible under law.
I think, ma'am,
what was the question?
I think
there's no other part to the question.
Okay. No, ma'am. I think you answered the question because the question now, when I read it again, they're talking about that when the CCTV footage is being recorded, it's not on the computer; it is on the DVR.
Yeah, right? It's original. It's on the hard disk.
It's original, right? And then from hard disk, if you have to make copy, you have to take it to the computer because otherwise you can't make a copy of it.
Yeah.
So I think even if you make like a copy from DVR to computer and computer to CD, you still have the original in place. So I think that would be considered.
See, okay. Now the answer would be different.
Okay.
If you are making a copy of any original media, you would require a computer. Firstly, suppose let's talk about the CCTV footage. Suppose any recording is there in the CCTV footage. It is there in the DVR. In order to make a copy, it will have to be transferred to the laptop. And from the laptop, it would be transferred to, say, you transfer it to a pen drive or a CCTV. So in such a situation, this is the process of making a copy. You cannot say it is a copy of a copy, that at first it was copied to a laptop and then it was copied to a CD. This is just a method of making a copy, as is mentioned in 65B4. If you go through it, it says that firstly you have to mention that what is the electronic record, what is the secondary electronic record, whether it's in a CD or a pen drive, and secondly you have to mention the process by which the copy was made. Okay. To give you an example, suppose I make a video using my mobile, right? And I want to place on record the copy. I want to place on record the CD of the video that I have made. I don't want to place on record the mobile. So how will I make it? I'll transfer the contents of the video to my laptop, and from the laptop, I will transfer the contents to a CD. So this is the process by which a copy has been created. It is, you cannot say that you have made a copy from a copy. Yes. So, and then it will be the copy that the CD would be accompanied by a certificate under section 65B4.
So that clears everything. That clears really. It's a process.
It's a process.
It's a process, and you have to follow the same process. Thank you so much, ma'am. I think that was a very detailed and I think everything is clear. It is clear to me at least. Moving to the next one, ma'am. Now this is, I think you have answered this question, but I will still ask the question. It might be have a different angle to it. The question is that if a person receives a video or a message or a mail on WhatsApp or mobile or mail, then how can he prove the same? Who is competent to give certificate under section 65B, and whether it is sufficient to mention the phone number or email from which the call was received?
See, a lot of evidence in this regard would have to be given in the court. Firstly, let's come to the video. Suppose you have received a video on WhatsApp and you want to place it on record. And again, we would have to consider whether you want to place on record the original media, the original electronic evidence, that is the original video that you have received. See, if you consider the definition of electronic record, it says that any data which has been received in the mobile is also electronic record. So what you have received, you cannot say that you've received a copy. You know, that could be the doubt in your mind that what you have received is a copy and, the original is with the sender. So it's not like this. What you have received is an electronic record, and if you have to prove it, so there are two ways. If you're placing on record the secondary evidence, then you will have to make it into a copy and it'll be your certificate. You know, you cannot ask the other person to give a certificate. In case of one thing I want to clear, that in case of electronic evidence, it is not always that we make a distinction between original and a copy. Because if we start doing that, this will lead to a lot of complications and we will not be able to prove so much of record in the court. Suppose suppose I send a mail to another person. So which one of the two would be considered as the original? Would you say that what mail that I sent is original and what has been received by the other person is a copy? We cannot make a distinction as far as electronic evidence is concerned. The opinion of the experts is that we cannot say that this is original and this is a copy. We should not make this strict kind of a thing. In the sense, as far as electronic evidence is concerned, there is no original. To give you an example, suppose a data is there in the hard disk, right? The original data is there in the hard disk, but you cannot read it till it's there in the hard disk. If it's original, you should be able to read it. You cannot read it. In order to read, it has to be manifested in some form. Either a printout has to be taken or it has to be manifested on the screen. So you can read it only when it is so manifested. So you cannot consider it a copy when it is manifested. This is an original thing. For example, the call detail records are recorded in huge servers. What is there in a server cannot be read by anybody. So how can that be considered as original? So this is what the experts are saying, that if we are making this kind of a distinction of original and copy in electronic record, this is slightly some kind of a misinterpretation. But as of now, we are making our 65B talks about original and a copy. The authorities that we have, they make a distinction between original and copy. So till the time we have a judicial pronouncement, we have a judicial review of the section which says that in certain circumstances, we will not make a distinction between original and copy. Till that time, we will have to, consider this thing. But as far as email is concerned, as well as the messages, for example, in this case, you said that you got a video on your mobile. According to me, if you ask me, this is original with you and you can produce it either your mobile or you make a copy and produce it along with your certificate. Yes. In case of email also, see, there is an authority, Abdul Rahman Kunji versus state. In this case, a mail was sent and Honorable High Court says that a mail can be proved by the sender. The person who has sent it, he can say that he sent this mail and he can give his certificate, and it can be proved by the receiver also along with his certificate. So we cannot make a distinction of original and copy in every given situation. We will have to kind of distinguish between situations.
Perfect, ma'am. Now, I'm moving to the next question. I think you had answered this question in the starting. And I think there's one extra part to it, so I'll read the question again for you, ma'am. The question is, in a criminal case, police seizes control over the electronic evidence amid investigation, and in such a case, who would furnish the relevant certificate, the owner of the device or the seizing officer or both? And what is a seizing officer or IO, investigation officer, omits furnishing of such certificate? You mentioned earlier that the person himself cannot give the certificate.
No, this situation is different. Here
Okay.
in this question, he is not saying that it is the device of the accused. He's merely saying that the prosecution, the police seizes
Yes.
some electronic evidence.
Yes.
Here
Yes.
in the question, they have not mentioned that it belongs to the accused. He
Right.
merely says, whether the certificate would be given by the owner. So we dealt with a situation where the electronic record is seized from the accused. In such a situation, of course, the police will have to rely upon the original because there won't be any certificate. But in a situation where the electronic evidence does not belong to the accused, of course the owner, the owner can give a certificate that this is my mobile, this is my computer, I am in lawful control. I have either he has see, there are two situations again. Either he has created the document himself, then he can give the certificate, or he is the receiver of some electronic document, then he can give the certificate, right? So it is the owner or the receiver who can give the certificate.
Okay, ma'am. Now, ma'am, I think a couple of more questions before we call it a day. Now,
See, 1 minute here. I would like to add one thing. Whenever electronic evidence comes to the court, you have to kind of make an analysis in your mind as to what is the status of the person who is producing the record on producing the electronic record vis-a-vis the electronic evidence. Suppose electronic evidence is being produced by a person who is the author, who has himself created. It's good enough, he can give the certificate. Suppose the electronic evidence is being produced by a person who is the receiver, he can also give the certificate. But suppose it is a third party who has created some kind of a document. In such a situation, if you expect, in case of third party documents, if you expect the person who's producing the document in the court to give a certificate, that is not possible. So it is only the owner, the author, the receiver of the electronic record who can give the certificate. In case of third, suppose the document belongs to somebody else. It's a third party, and somebody else wants to rely upon the document. He has not created it. He does not know anything about the creation of the document. He does not know anything about the device which created it. He is not the receiver of the document. He just gets hold of some kind of electronic evidence and he wants to produce it in the court, and it's a copy. So in such a situation, there is one doesn't know about the existence of the original. So in this, um, I discussed it in my lecture also that there is no set formula. There is no straitjacket formula of proving that this formula would be applicable if it is a CCTV footage. So we'll apply this formula. It's not like this. Even Honorable Supreme Court says that we cannot lay down any exhaustive rules by which, one can say that these are the rules to make the electronic evidence admissible, because technology is changing by the day. Every day there's a new technology. Every day there is an upgraded version. So it will have to be decided on a case-to-case basis, depending on the kind of circumstances which are there before the court.
ma'am. Now the question is pertaining to again electronic record. It's a suggestion that has been asked from Ms. Paveen Singh, saying that if the evidence has been electronic evidence has been tampered, so what is the guide and what is the course of action that the court should adopt in respect to that? How should they involve the forensic agencies or expert witnesses, and how to go about this? So basically, she's asking for the process that needs to be followed.
First of all, we have to remember that we are not technology experts. If any evidence which has been tempered has been produced in the court, there is no way a judge would come to know that this is tempered. In most of the cases, you won't even come to know that the thing has been tempered, nor the other party would come to know. So if a document like this gets exhibited, it gets exhibited. But if the other party somehow comes to know that there is some manipulation, there is some alteration, the option is that in such a situation, the record can always be sent to FSL for authentication. Now, another point here is that there are certain security procedures. It's listed in Information Technology Act also. It is there in Evidence Act also. that if a party applies a security procedure to the document, suppose a hash value is taken out. It's a very simple method by which you can calculate the hash value of the document. You just have to apply a mathematical algorithm and the hash value comes. So if a document is filed along with hash value, you are sure that there has not been any manipulation with the document, even if the opposite party says this is manipulated or this has been fabricated. If it is filed along with the hash value, you know that it has not been manipulated. If document is there along with electronic signature, you can be get some idea that yes, there cannot be any alteration because electronic signature is there. And if digital signature is there, then one can be 100% sure that yes, this document has not been altered. Once digital signature is there, you are 100% sure that this document is what it purports to be. So these are ways of making the electronic evidence secure, but that will come only when the parties have awareness and they start applying the security procedures to the document. Till then, we will have to make do with whatever comes on the file and all that.
I will move to the next question, and it is pertaining to the PC Act. The question is, in a PC Act case, there is a call details and the recording of the conversation taken place between the complainant and the accused. Now, before the recording of the statement of the complainant in the court was filed, the complainant died. The call details and the recording are the documents as provided under Section 3 of Evidence Act, and other cooperative evidence are also available, like statement.
So, please repeat, the complainant died after that?
The complainant died, ma'am, and the call details and the recording of the documents are available as provided under Section 3 of Evidence Act. And other evidence like the statement of the shadow witness extra are also available. Now, basis this, can the conviction take place on just merely on the recording that has been submitted before the court?
See, if you go by the provision of 65B, 65B says that the certificate has to be given by a person who is occupying a responsible official position in relation to the device. So it was the complainant. In this case, it was the complainant who was, who had done the recording. He was the best person to have deposed that, how the recording was done, which was the place, what was the time, how did he go about recording this thing, and who is the person who, in whose voice is there in the audio. So in the absence of which, then you will have to look for other evidence which is there on record. I have my doubts whether you can rely upon this kind of evidence, because in Tukaram as the goal and many other authorities, Honorable Supreme Court and our High Court have said that if there is a CD, in even Jatinder Pal, when somebody said Jatinder Pal, Honorable High Court says that the maker of the audio, the person who recorded the audio has to come on record. So in case of a video, the maker of the video has to come on record. So in this case, when the complainant has died, who else could be there who who recorded, who was holding the device and who was recording? I can't think of any other person who can give the certificate. So in such a situation, there could be a situation in this scenario also. Another situation could be that it is not disputed, but it could be disputed. So you would have to look for other evidence on record. You cannot, the situation that you are telling, you cannot rely upon electronic evidence. But original is there. So see, if original is there, hard disk is there, you don't need a certificate. Then you don't need the complainant also.
I was just about to say that.
Original is there.
Yes.
So yeah. In case of original, the certificate, there's no requirement of the certificate. So original media is there, so it will be admissible.
Yes. Perfect, ma'am. Now that brings us to the last question, and the question is, in case of the opposite party wants to have access to the computer system from which the electronic evidence was produced, can he be allowed to cross-check the correctness of the certificate? Can
he wants to have, please repeat the question. He wants to have access to the device.
The device, like in this case, the computer system from which the electronic evidence was produced. To check the authenticity that is it correct or not.
No, I have my doubts about this. Nobody can be allowed to have access to somebody else's computer because that would be infringement of right to privacy. And especially when our own Supreme Court, Honorable Supreme Court in Puttaswamy case has held that right to privacy is a fundamental right. So that is not possible. But at the same time, there are other ways of what is the party concerned about is the authenticity of the document. So there are other ways of ascertaining the authenticity of the document. Accessing somebody else's computer is certainly not the way. So that will not be allowed.
Okay, ma'am. I think that brings us to the end of the questions. I think it's been 1 hour. You've been answering questions.
Oh, hey, thank you so much. It was really nice. I enjoyed every bit of it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
On behalf of SCC Online, on behalf of everyone, I would like to thank all the members, all the lordship, all the ladyships, all the members from PNH boards. Thank you for giving us time. Thank you for coming online and sitting through the entire session. And on behalf of everyone, I would like to thank Ranjana Agarwal, Mr. Ranjana Agarwal, ma'am. Thank you for giving your time. Thank you for taking so much of time and answering the question in so detail and depth. So I'm sure everyone who had asked the question have got their answers. And if not, I'm sure everyone has your number. They can get in touch with you directly, and things can be done, taken care of at that level as well.
No, yeah, it's okay.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, thank you again, and we'll take a leave from everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.